Good morning, everyone. Today we are contemplating stillness, and I thought my call to worship was going to be very still, but here we are. Being comfortable with just ourselves, being fully present, alone, in the moment, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Stillness. Our world, at least my world, doesn't exactly encourage this. It seems that the external requires so much attention with all its distraction. Tasks, interactions, noise, stress, ideals, pleasures, beliefs, and anxieties, to name a few. Before I know it, this all becomes the sum total of my daily living experience, and I think of it as normal. But I know that stillness is within me, and I think I need it. And I think at times I actually long for it. I checked the dictionary and found these synonyms for stillness: calm, hush, peace, repose, rest, serene, tranquil. Just reading those words causes my shoulders to relax, my face to soften, my breath to release in exhale. My mind slows down just a bit. I, like many of you, I'm sure, have a busy mind with a never-ending list of things to think about or take care of. When confronted with an issue, a task, or a problem, I immediately want to find a solution, improve the situation, and take action. I had a good friend tell me once, in jest, I thought, "Don't just do something, sit there." I think of that often and smile. Sometimes what is necessary and right is for me to be still, to let quiet time pass, to reflect, to contemplate, or clear my mind and meditate. I am not skilled in meditation. It is something I still have to make a commitment and follow through with. Being still is not what I'm always eager to take time for. But even saying that, I recognize how all that daily noise quiets, and I am comforted and I am soothed when I allow myself to just be still. Deepak Chopra said, "In the midst of movement and chaos, keep stillness inside of you." Come, let us worship.
Well, I was looking for my Wonder Box this morning and I could not find it. And so instead, I found my citronella box. I don't know if you have any of these. It's my citronella box. It's very nice. And so I wonder what might be here in this Wonder citronella box. Oh, jeez. Did you see that? It was a fly or a mosquito or something, and it's just buzzing around here, and oh, I should have known. Oh, it repels, so it just shot it out, and now it's in my world, this mosquito and fly, and it reminds me of a story, and this mosquito hopefully won't distract me too much. It's just gonna keep buzzing around and perhaps getting on the screen or on my hair, and how embarrassing would that be? But it reminds me of a story about another fly and about a student of meditation. Perhaps her name was Pam. I'm not sure. But I want to tell you about this story. This is the story about Tai Chi and the story of its beginning. There was a young man who grew up in China. Everyone said that he was so calm and peaceful, he could become a monk. Not wanting to displease his family and friends by telling the truth, the young man let them think he was indeed peaceful and calm. Inside, however, the young man was filled with feelings of doubt, joy, love, happiness, sadness, and many questions. Because he wanted others' approval, he kept his feelings and questions to himself. He went on looking calm and peaceful to everyone. When he was old enough, he entered the monastery because everyone said he looked so peaceful and calm. They did not know of his secret inner life. Everyone was pleased because they felt he would be a great monk. For years, he practiced sitting calmly and peacefully, and his masters were pleased. Little did they know that behind that calm exterior bubbled energy, exuberance, and still more questions. The young man kept all these things to himself. After years at the monastery, the young man was to be tested for his deep inner religious peace. He was to go to a mountaintop to meditate for many months. And on a final day, the master would observe his meditation. So he went to the mountaintops for many days. He sat and he sat and he sat. He looked very calm and peaceful on the outside, but on the inside, his mind was filled with the crane's flight, fire and shadow, and the earth's elements, as well as questions of beginnings and endings. He did not tell anyone of the scenes and questions that filled his mind. One day, he was on top of the mountain, sitting peacefully, pretending to be calm, meditating and preparing for the day of his exam, which was only 2 weeks away, when a fly landed right on the end of his nose. We tried wiggling his nose to get it off, and this didn't work. He wiggled his nose again. What a stubborn fly. Next, he waved his hand, and the fly danced. As he waved his hand, he discovered how joyful it felt to move. The fly then landed again on his nose, and the young man moved his other hand. This, too, felt wonderful. The fly began to turn circles and move with the wind and the earth, and the young man leaped and laughed, dancing with the fly. As the days passed, the young man looked forward to his dancing and moving with the fly. He lost all track of time, hours, days, or minutes. He knew only the joy of moving in harmony with the elements: earth, water, fire, wood, wind, and metal. The young man went to the top of the mountain on the day of his exam, but he had forgotten that this was a most important day. He saw the fly, and they began their dance together. Earth, water, fire, wood, wind, and metal. They moved with focus and great joy. Neither the fly nor the young man even noticed the master of masters seated, watching their movements. After a while, the master of masters approached. The young man grew silent, embarrassed, and fearful. He was supposed to be calm and meditative. He looked down in shame. He had failed his training. The master of masters then said, "Young man, you must teach me this movement. You use the energy of the life force to mirror the earth, fire, wind, sky, birds, and water. This focused energy complements our study of inner peace. Since all is in balance, we need stillness and energy. We need peace and activity. We need meditation and movement. Teach me, then you will teach all the monks this new miracle of focused energy." So from one young man whose creativity spilled over to dance with a fly came a meditation of movement called Tai Chi. I hope that this story grounds you a little bit more, gives you appreciation for you and for perhaps the different flies that might be buzzing around this time of year, perhaps throughout the year.
Not the silence of a child finally asleep in a crib. Not the silence of a pear blossom falling. Not the silence of singers after the song. Not the silence of embarrassed strangers. Not the silence of streets when gunshot stops. Not the silence of rage. Not the red-faced silence of frustration. Not the silence of the exhausted. Not the silence of the gardener gardening alone. But this, the silence of those who have been together and who do not need to hide their aloneness with words. The silence of lovers who have come to a place of quiet comfort. The silence of a newborn at breast. The silence of an overflowing human heart under the stars at night. The silence of friends holding still in a long and tender embrace.
Is not the proverbial egg that expects you to sit on it and wait. It is instead a scrumptious feast to be served when you call. Look around. It awaits a response from you, one that says, yes, I see you. Yes, I choose you. Yes. The golden present ever reaches for you and wonders if you'll come to unwrap its gifts. Growing up, and if I am honest, still today, I enjoyed making up games to pass time in the car. This might not surprise you. Whether on short drives to school or errands, or on long road trips, I came up with quite a few games, as my parents can attest. Perhaps my most frequented one was a cleverly titled guessing game called the two-word game. It was, in essence, an expansion of the game 20 Questions, but in this game, you had to think of a word that had two meanings, or in other words, a homonym. You'd be surprised how many there are in the English language. Words like red and red, deer and deer, cantaloupe and cannot elope. Okay, that one might be a little bit of a stretch, but I tried it. This game was fun. It was a fun one because there were these two paths that the guesser could go down to try and get to the answer. I had so much fun playing that game as a child. I hope my parents did too, because we played it a lot. And I hope that Holly will continue the tradition someday. This time of year, one homonym is always on the tip of my mind and heart. Presents, or presents. For those who celebrate Hanukkah or Christmas, Diwali or Kwanzaa, this time of year can be filled with a custom of exchanging presents with those we love, with family and friends in person, or more likely this year on Zoom. We gather to offer our presence and love in community. And I just love this type of homonym, presence, because the two words presence a gift we can give, and presence, a gift we can give, are very different and yet so similar. For what would be a better gift this year or any year than the gift of presence? To present a loved one with your presence is an act of compassion and care, if there ever was one. But this year, and perhaps all years, during the time between Thanksgiving and New Year's, it can be really hard to find a stillness, to feel present, to slow down and just be with those we love. And so presence, like those you might order online or from a local small business, hopefully not on Christmas Eve, as I have been guilty of doing, are easier to attain than the more ephemeral and fleeting and countercultural presence that people have sought for millennia. What is meaningful to me as a minister, as a husband and a father, is that the offer is always there. The gift of stillness, of presence, of compassion and peace. This time of year, it perhaps feels less available, but it is always there waiting. Latinx UU minister, the Reverend Marta E. Valentin, reminds us that the golden present ever reaches for you and wonders if you'll come to unwrap its gifts. This concept of the golden present was popularized by Sri Swami Satchidananda, who founded a school of thought, meditation, and practice known as integral yoga. He became one of the most revered yoga teachers in this hemisphere from the moment he opened the 1969 Woodstock Music Festival, in which he guided 500,000 young people in the chanting of the sacred word, sound, and energy of Om. But this sermon isn't about this teacher, but the concept of the golden present, rather, feels appropriate for this time of year. After all, in only a few short weeks, a young babe will be presented a golden present as he lays in a manger, surrounded by those who wonder what will come of his life. No, today is about how we can arrive at the golden present, at striving to offer this holiday season the presence of our presence to those we love. And to this way, I have been reflecting on my love-hate, hate might be too strong of a word, let's say my complicated relationship with our theme for this month of December, stillness. Stillness. Come on, who picks these themes anyway? Alas, it is a good theme to consider, and trust me, it is not one I do so lightly because I am really bad at becoming present or remaining present. I'm a little more like Pam, whose mind might race toward action, toward solution, and toward movement. The stillness of meditation is hard for me, and it is hard for many in this country. It is countercultural. It is even taboo to be unproductive, to be still, to just be. And yet I know the challenges that can come from the single meanings I, and perhaps you too, ascribe to words. And from those meanings have specific images of what something is or what something is not. So in this sense, if my conception of meditation is interchangeable with the word stillness, complete stillness, then I am in a bit of deep trouble, aren't I? But perhaps there is a multitude of meaning and practice that can be found in our journey towards stillness. Perhaps, paradoxically and poetically, we must move to find stillness. And we might need to be still in order to move. In our Wonderbox time this morning, we explored the origins of the Chinese practice of Tai Chi. Are any of you familiar with Tai Chi or have experienced it throughout your life? I first learned about it through my mom, and her sister practicing it when I was growing up. But I didn't know much more beyond that. I sort of had this image in my mind of people sort of slowly moving with their hands like this, very intentional, but I didn't understand the deeper meaning of the moves until much later in my life. It is poetic, to say the least, that the origins of one of the most calming and widespread practices of meditation started with a human just like you and me, who at times longs for peace and stillness, and yet on the inside is filled with a multitude of feelings and contradictions. In the story, the student feels guilt and shame for not being able to set aside those feelings and contradictions. The student is supposed to become the teacher and model to the students what true meditation and peace looks like, and yet this was not possible, due in large part to this pesky little fly that would just not go away. In the midst of meditation, would just land on the student's nose, and no matter how hard the student concentrated, the fly would persist and prevent the student from complete stillness. As the story unfolds, we come to learn that there is beauty in dancing with our feelings and contradictions. There is beauty in moving with intention through our lives. There is not reason for guilt or shame to have these feelings or contradictions, but rather it is an embodiment of compassion to honor that fullness and wholeness within each of us. The master who comes and witnesses these things is amazed and longs for knowledge of how to take this teaching to the masses. Okay, so in this case, an argument is being made that stillness is not numbness. Stillness is not death, but rather is a part of life, the awesomeness of life, the wonderfulness of life. And to strive to experience that awesomeness and wonderfulness, we sometimes need to sit, and sometimes we need to move, and not just move with a chaotic nature, but with intention and compassion, with a knowledge of our values and what we hope to do and make real in this life. It can be a golden present we find in our stillness, or in our gift of stillness with a friend or family member. It could be just what we need this year, and just what we need every year. I'm still struck by the first reading that Pam offered us this morning. It was a message on silence, on a related topic of sorts, and yet an equally complicated theme. You see, the silence that the Reverend Mark Bellatini spoke of must be distinguished between the type of silence we are looking for, striving for, together as a community. He starts by listing the names of silence, the types of silence we might not be longing for, which is the definition of via negativa, the name of the poem, to describe something by what it is not. So Reverend Mark Bellatini writes, for example, not the silence of singers after the song, not the silence of embarrassed strangers, not the silence of streets when gunshot stops, not the silence of rage, not the red-faced silence of frustration, not the silence of the exhausted. You can see that from this list there are some qualities lacking from these types of silence. They aren't getting to the quality of stillness and peace, I think, and the quality of love that I think we here at UUCCI strive for. In short, these are some examples of negative silence. But the silence, the stillness, the compassion and peace we long for here is positive, is life-affirming, life-sustaining, and life-creating. Our silence, our stillness is characterized by the silence of those who have been together and do not need to hide their aloneness with words. the silence of lovers who have come to a place of quiet comfort, the silence of a newborn at breast, the silence of an overflowing human heart under the stars at night, and the silence of friends holding still in a long and tender embrace. My friends, may we hold still in a long and tender embrace. Virtual as it may be these days, yet tender and real and loving nonetheless. As we move through this month of December, may we find moments of stillness, honoring our emotions and contradictions, and receive the presence of our presence and the presence of others. What a golden month we have in store before us. May it be so. May it be golden, and amen.